Hello and welcome to the Badger Politic. I'm Scott Stearns and I'm joined here by Mr. Paul Sickle.
Hi, welcome.
How are things going with you?
They're good. By the way, standing ovation at the Brewer game for Josh Hader, not okay.
Well, I mean, what I would say, and I was actually at that game on Saturday, and so he had a number of what we would consider racist tweets, but he owned up to it. And the team appears to have embraced him, and I think he didn't try to hide the fact that he was a stupid kid,
right?
And he's not that person anymore. So I would explain the standing O. I agree. I don't think he deserved a standing O, but I think the explanation for it is that his team was supportive of him. He owned up to it. He didn't try to hide from the fact that this happened. Didn't try to pretend like his account was hacked or something like that.
So I thought the team response is okay.
Yeah, so I think that's. I think his answer to it was honorable.
No, I just didn't like the fan. I think it sends a wrong message.
I agree. I think it's a little over the top.
I mean, you don't need a standing ovation.
No. No, I mean,
I thought
for somebody coming off the week like that, I think he just needs to buckle down and do his job, and then time
clean with the team. That was good, and
that was critical.
And the team really backing him up, I thought was valuable, but not backing his statements up, making it very clear they condemned them, and he's saying, look, I'm. That's not me anymore.
Yeah.
Just owning the comments. I thought that was solid.
Yeah.
So I just didn't like the fan reaction.
No, I think it was the wrong. I agree. I mean, it's the wrong message to send. I think.
Well, how many people stood up during it?
I was walking around with my kid, getting food and looking for activities. So I didn't actually see. Because I think it was later innings when he came in. Yeah, but I think it was probably a good chunk of the fans.
Yeah,
from what I understand.
All right. Well, that is what it is.
These things, when it comes to politics.
There's always a few Uncle Vicks in the stands, unfortunately. Whatever.
But we've got, obviously, the news around the Mahlon Mitchell campaign today as well when it comes to the governor's race. So,
I think that about this comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really bad reporting from the Journal-Sentinel. Totally honest with you. I mean, as a parent of a special needs child myself, I wasn't offended by what he said. I was much more offended by the fact that the person who says she's upset about it is a Walker appointee trying to score political points off of disabilities,
right.
Frankly.
So just at the table, so what is it that occurred exactly?
So there's this story in the Journal that Mahlon Mitchell said he compared himself to the character that Cuba Gooding Jr. plays in the movie where he plays a disabled adult.
Yeah.
And it's not meant really as a joke, as far as I can tell. I mean, I guess it's kind of meant as an ironic statement, because he does kind of look like him, honestly. And that's
there's a likeness.
At the firehouse. And, but... he wasn't prepared to answer the question, which was what movie star would you compare yourself to? But and nobody really thought anything of it at the debate, including the Democratic challengers.
So it was the Next Gen America forum, and so there was a few candidates that showed up to that, and the question was about if you were to be portrayed by somebody in a movie, who do you think could portray you? And he said, this is going to sound good or bad, I don't know, but at the firehouse they say that Cuba Gooding Jr. would play me, but when he played radio.
Okay.
And that was referencing when Cuba Gooding Jr. portrayed James Kennedy, whose nickname was Radio, a man with developmental disabilities who was befriended by a high school football coach in the 1960s. So, I mean, I think it sounds to me like it's just Walker's people are taking.
He said it with a straight face. The only people that take advantage aren't the other Democratic candidate, but Walker's own. And the problem I have is the Journal Sentinel article quotes the woman, Sweden is her last name. Do you have her first name? As being a disabled advocate, I guess, that's upset by it. But she's actually a Walker appointee to head the...
Beth Sweden, Executive Director of the Wisconsin's Board for People with Developmental Disabilities.
Now, when you go on and look up the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, it's a government site. It's part of the governor's website, and it's got a picture of her, or like Scott Walker and some woman that I presume is her.
Yeah.
So it's totally self-serving, and frankly, I think she's using the disabled community.
That's what it sounds like to me.
To try to score political points against who they probably fear is probably the strongest Democrat to face him.
Mahlon's spokesperson, Kirsten Allen, said Mitchell was...
Full disclosure, I do know her. I know Mahlon, too.
He was not trying to make a joke and was being serious, and Mahlon didn't laugh when responding to the question. So, yeah, to me it should be a non-story, but...
Right.
It's obviously we're in the heat of the political season.
To me, it shows Walker
race.
is threatened, that he needs to pick out a candidate.
Yeah.
Frankly, not polling all that well in the Democratic primary, according to the public polls.
Yeah.
But because there's so many undecideds, could still win this thing and could present a viable threat to Walker once the party unifies. And I think that's... And then he goes on, right? They go on to criticize all the other candidates for laughing. So they waste no time making sure it's not just an attack on Mahlon, but it's an attack on all the Democratic candidates.
Right.
And so I think that to me tells me they're just trying to score political points.
Well, it
shows almost a level of desperation. And frankly, as a parent, like I said, of a disabled child, that to me is far more offensive than what is at worst maybe a misspeak on the part of Mitchell. And even he showed a certain conscientiousness about it in his hesitation of answering the question.
Sure. Oh, I would agree.
And so maybe I have to watch the video clip and maybe I'd have a different reaction. But
on his face, though, it just seems to be very self-serving in terms of...
From Walker?
Yeah.
So I think it's time for... I hope Mahlon calls out Walker. And I hope all the Democrats do. And so, you know what? This is... You're making... causing a tempest in a teapot, and you're doing it... frankly, on the backs of the disabled community.
Yeah, well...
that he does nothing to serve as a governor.
This is Exhibit A.
He's against... coverage for people with pre-existing conditions. What does that do to the disabled community?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is this is just kind of indicative of what whoever the Democratic nominee should expect, because Walker it's going to be no holds barred. He's going to have plenty of money. He doesn't have any shame. He realizes it's going to be a close race. So whatever,
who should have shame though is Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Molly Beck. Reporter,
for just taking it.
Was it Kirch? No, Pat Marley. Who are people I tend to respect usually as reporters.
Yeah.
For them taking the bait, I mean, clearly this was fed to them.
Yeah.
On a spoon.
Right. It was almost,
and they ran with it.
It was almost like a press release.
Pretty much. I mean, really. I mean, I'll give them credit. And then they go on with some paragraphs about Mahlon's positions, which I guess maybe their attempt at fairness.
Yeah.
So maybe it's not even the writer's fault. Maybe it's the editor's fault for trying to force a bad story in. But what the hell? Why the hell is the Journal Sentinel so in the pot? Like, now that they're
just trying to sell papers, and if gossip sells papers, then that's
they're just trying to buy whatever Walker's bait is and do whatever Walker wants in the coverage, because Walker has dictated the coverage in that newspaper for his entire political career.
Well, people that are office holders tend to have a bigger megaphone when it comes to...
He had a bigger megaphone than Tom Ament when he was challenging him. He had a bigger megaphone.
Yes.
He's always had a megaphone in there. I mean, he's had some right-wing backers in this community who I think are feeling more emboldened now that, John McAdams at Marquette has been reinstated.
What this is shaping up to be in terms of the governor's race, though, is that he's going to hit wherever he can hit, because he realizes that this could be a close race.
Walker does.
Yeah. Because and so whatever little thing he can do around the edges to nip away at the lead or whatever the gap is between him and the nominee, he's going to do it. In terms of what Walker's willing to do to win re-election, you can count it on one hand. He is using money in an effort to sway votes. You look at the child tax credit, $100 per child tax credit this year. That was thrown together in an election year. There's the satellite offices that are announcing because the Foxconn backlash happened. So there were a lot of people upstate who were not happy with having to pay taxpayer dollars for down in southeastern Wisconsin, $4.5 billion. So that's the thing. So all of a sudden, randomly, there was first an innovation center announced in Green Bay, and then there's another one now that's going to be in Eau Claire, supposedly. We'll see if these things ever pan out. They may or may not. Probably not. But in an election year, they can say, like, hey, we're going to create jobs in Eau Claire and Green Bay. Oh, look at the geography of the state. There's no coincidence there. So, and you look at the UW funding, what he's doing there. He's the education governor this year, right? So he's throwing all kinds of money at the UW system. So
he's not throwing all kinds of money.
He's increasing it so he can say that he is the education governor. Well, and add to that what he announced this week with sending money to the city of Milwaukee to
which is also like nothing.
It's like $4 million to replace lead laterals for the water system here in town.
For the needs of what we're dealing with is nothing.
It'll replace a few hundred probably.
Yeah,
but it's electioneering through the state budget.
He's trying to bribe the voters, but he's doing it on such a cheap basis.
But it allows them to put up.
Tommy Thompson was bribing voters. He'd actually get a bribe through. It might be worth it to the voters.
Right.
This is not that. This guy is playing really shitty lip service.
Yeah.
But
I don't think he's trying to hide the fact that he's doing this in an election year. I think he's hopeful that if it's a close race, that he can convince enough voters with these different initiatives to bring them over to his side. And if you look at the Marquette poll that came out last week after we recorded, I mean there is cause for concern because there is a right track, wrong track poll there that said I think 52% of the people that were polled think Wisconsin's headed in the right direction.
We could while we're at it, we could just say let's just concede the election to Walker.
I'm not saying that.
We really seriously if with the coverage like this in the Journal Sentinel, and frankly, I think you're going to see this increasingly from the Journal Sentinel. I think I'm actually on to something. I know you think I may be over the top, but I think that the
gossip element is prevalent when it comes to the local coverage, and I think that's really what it is. They're selling papers.
No, they're selling whatever Walker's team feeds them. It's the weakest story ever. They're selling whatever. There's such deference to Walker in this paper. There always has been. There always will be. I mean, the guy is really he's a blight on our state, and this paper treats him like he's
like it's royalty.
It's royalty, pretty much. And I mean. I think that they do give him special treatment in a way that you don't see in other places necessarily, or you don't see them doing toward other politicians, including even Tommy Thompson.
Yeah,
it even goes back to promoting these polls that are these incredibly strong Republican skews in these polls, and they are kind of they're remarkable. These polls, the Marquette poll, is showing that self-identified Republicans are outpacing Democrats for the first time in their polls history.
Right, and we wouldn't
despite
expect
the fact that all other indicators are that Republicans are weaker on the ground this year.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, they're suggesting that the resistance, all the special elections, everything you've seen has resulted in a red wave.
Well,
maybe there's a red wave. I mean, but it sounds like if there is one, it's because the Journal Sentinel is helping promote it.
That could be. I mean, in terms of this poll, the Walker's approval numbers did go down slightly. So it was in June.
Net was the same. negative
Right.
+2, according to this poll, which skews very heavily Republican, according to its
But the don't knows
range.
went up. So it was in June, which was the last poll we talked about. The Walker's approval rating was 49% to 47% opposed, 3% didn't know. In July, it's 47-45 approval, and 7% don't know. So the don't know column has gone up some.
It's doubled. Great. I mean, that's statistically
Given the margin of error, it's 800 respondents.
No, what's more telling is that
close.
it's still there's a split between almost even split between Democrats and Republicans in the poll.
Yeah.
That's historically anomalous. In fact, among pure without leaners, there's more of a it's actually a Republican lean. Without leaners, it's a Republican favored poll. Is what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's kind of bogus. It's a thumb on the scale poll.
It seems to be, but I guess obviously we'll find out come November. But
well, maybe we won't, because maybe by then their thumb will have been effective.
Right. In terms of the Democratic primary, there wasn't really a lot of movement.
There's nothing going on there.
So
Evers is the head-on favorite,
Yeah.
unless one of these ad campaigns can somehow
31
get attention and possibly put it.
31% of respondents said they supported Evers. Mahlon was next up. It was 6%. Vineout also had 6%. Calderoy's only had 3%.
So can we put this graphic of the Dem-Republican split on our Facebook and circle
Sure.
the anomaly that even though now, according to with leaners, it's tied, it's at a historical low point, really not within their poll.
Yeah.
When this is supposed to be a Democratic year.
Right.
And the special election, not special election, the Supreme Court election for Dallas seems to indicate that would be the case.
Well, we talked about before this that the fact that
somehow this is a red surge.
The Marquette poll
Marquette.
may be skewed just based on the 2016 results. That they've tried to counterbalance based on that result. But obviously, we don't think we're projecting that that's not going to be what the turnout looks like come November.
It hasn't been, certainly in the special elections.
Yeah. When you look at what happened with Evers, when you looked at what happened with the Supreme Court,
odd year elections.
Yeah.
So, so I guess the right track thing you brought up too.
The right track thing is interesting, but I think we talked about this beforehand too. Is that question is in and of itself maybe a little complicated. It's not as straightforward as I think that people maybe think it is.
52% think we're on the right track, 42% think we're on the wrong track.
And that's compared to the question where 47% of people approve of Scott Walker's handling of his job. So there's a 5%.
45% don't.
Yeah, and so there's a 5% disconnect between the people that think we're headed in the right direction and the people that support Walker. So there are people that are saying like, yes, Wisconsin's headed in the right direction,
right.
But they also didn't say they supported
so
Walker.
I mean, what we thought, like one thing might be that some progressives might be thinking, well, Randy Bryce is running.
Right.
There's a chance to You're the Woman.
Rebecca Dallett won. Tony Evers cleaned up last week or last year for the state superintendent.
So that could be
race.
part of it.
So yeah, I think you could interpret the response in that fashion. That like things are headed in the right direction because they're not happening like they were a couple years ago.
It's not the bulk of it. The bulk of it is probably based on the economy.
The bulk of it trends with Walker's approval rating.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little bit. I'm not sure.
The majority of response, I would assume, answered yes to. Yes,
no, when
Wisconsin's headed in the right direction, and I approve of Walker.
As I recall, when Walker's approval rating was much lower right after his failed presidential bid, there still was a lot of right track answers. And also, I would point out that people tend to always go right track the more local you get. So at the national level, the right track numbers will be definitely in the negative. Mm-hmm. And then the state level, and if you did one, just even, Milwaukee County or something like that, people tend to always, it's just like where, like, what do you think of Congress? Oh, everybody's like 90% disapproval.
Right.
What do you think of your congressperson? Oh, like 55% approve. Mm-hmm. That's just how politics operates.
Yeah.
And that's a long running trend. Like that goes back as far as I think polling does.
Sure. So, well, bottom line is we're 3 weeks away from the primary. August 14th, listeners, is
Are you bringing back Rick or Vic again?
I think, well, so this podcast will be we'll be off next week because I will be out of town on vacation, and we'll be coming back the week before the election on August 14th.
Vic just texted me that he agrees that the Journal Sentinel is bullshit. But he thinks it's on the.
He thinks it's too liberal. I'm sure.
Rag.
Well,
so,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, he
go figure.
He thinks Fox News is center left. So.
He doesn't think the state's on the right track, but he thinks Scott Walker is the best governor ever and Trump's the best president. He just thinks that Wisconsin is too accepting of other views.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, the right track, wrong track, Paul. You got to question it.
Yeah, I think there's you can read into it a little bit. I think.
All right,
but. On that note, so yeah, the listeners will be off next week. We'll be back the week after to kind of preview the run-up to the August 14th primary, which will be for governor, for U.S. senator, and there'll be several races.
Note the generic ballot tests have been looking actually really good.
Yep.
A lot of the polling I've seen has suggested that, frankly, a lot of Walker's messages clearly like election year ploys.
Well, that's good.
So
people hopefully are seeing through some of these budgetary maneuvers.
I think we're in the game. I think don't lose faith. Don't let the Journal Sentinel skew your views.
Yeah, well, make sure you come out and vote on August 14th.
Right.
All right, listeners, forward.